We tend to think of doctors as these warriors, right? Fighting against time, fighting against disease. But what happens when that fight becomes everything? This is a story about a doctor who built her entire life on a foundation of action, of doing, only to discover that real healing might actually be found in perfect stillness. And her journey doesn't start in some chaotic ER, but in a place of deep, absolute, unquestioned faith.
So let's just paint this picture for a second. Imagine a young Kajal, her voice just soaring during the Mata Kajagran, this incredible, vibrant community ritual. Her mom is beaming with pride, her dad's singing totally off-key but with so much joy, and her brother Samir, well, he's rolling his eyes, but you can tell he's captivated. In her world, faith wasn't something you debated. It was just the air you breathed. It was this warm, comforting blanket that told you everything was going to be okay.
And that really is the central question of her entire story. Because that warm, certain world, it's about to be completely obliterated. A single catastrophic event is going to force this young woman to rebuild her entire being around a furious vow. A vow that's going to make her a brilliant doctor, for sure. But it's also going to build an impenetrable fortress around her heart.
Okay, so let's get into the moment that changed absolutely everything. This wasn't a slow burn. This was a sudden, violent break from the world she knew.
It happened just like that, on a dark road. The screech of metal, the smell of gasoline and blood. The world that was just filled with music and family was suddenly horribly wrong. Her parents were gone in an instant, but her brother, Samir, he was alive, just barely, and she held him, screaming for help that just came too slow, as time itself seemed to stretch into this cruel, unbearable thing.
At the hospital, a young doctor, totally exhausted, delivers the news about Samir with these 5 little words. He talks about the golden hour, this window of time that they missed, and that phrase, might have been saved, it didn't just haunt Kajal. No, it lodged itself inside her like a piece of shrapnel, and it became the bitter, driving force for the rest of her life.
And that right there, that's the birth of her vow. See, Kajal doesn't choose medicine because she wants to heal. She chooses it to fight. Her grief doesn't soften into compassion. It hardens into this cold, clinical rage. She decided she would become the doctor who's always there, the one who beats the clock, who conquers that golden hour, and who makes damn sure no one ever has to hear the 5 words that shattered her world.
And you know what? This vow turned her into a force of nature, a truly formidable physician. She was brilliant, she was fast, and she was notoriously difficult. She took on impossible cases and just worked relentlessly. Her whole life became this constant, forward-moving assault on loss itself.
This slide, this really captures her entire journey. On the left, you see the warrior doctor she became. For her, emotion was just inefficiency. Faith, that was a luxury she couldn't afford. She never lingered, never offered comfort. She just fixed. But on the right, that's the healer she's forced to become. Someone who discovers that the greatest power isn't in frantic action, but in simply staying.
So this fortress she's built, it's about to meet 2 people who are going to take it apart, brick by brick. First, there's Varun, a 15-year-old kid facing this brutal diagnosis with a kind of quiet wisdom that she just cannot compute. And then there's Mira, his death doula, a woman whose entire philosophy is the complete opposite of Kajal's frantic war against time. And this is where the real conflict begins. See, this isn't just a medical drama about whether or not a risky surgery will work. This is a deep, philosophical duel between a doctor who believes the only answer is to do something and a woman who knows that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is just be present. And the first shot in this duel, it's fired by Varun. Just quietly, with no drama. He says he doesn't want the experimental surgery that Kajal sees as his one and only chance. For Kajal, it's just incomprehensible. It's like he's giving up the fight, violating the one rule she has lived by for her entire adult life. Instantly, Kajal points the finger at Mira. In her mind, Mira's calm presence is the problem. All this listening, laughing with Varun, letting him talk about his fears, to Kajal, that's a dangerous distraction. It's weakening his will to fight. It's wasting time they don't have. But Mira's answer, wow, it just flips the whole idea of reality on its head. For her, reality isn't just the tumor on a brain scan. It's the experience of being a scared and funny and very much alive 15-year-old boy who is living with that tumor. She's not distracting him from his life. She's helping him actually live it, right here, right now.
But here's the thing that's really interesting. Think about how Varun feels. He hears Kajal's constant push for action, her talk about timelines and fighting, and to him, it feels like he's already a ghost. In her desperate race to save his future, she's completely and totally missing the person he is in the present.
And this explains Mira's role perfectly. Kajal thinks she's preparing Varun to die, but Mira's goal is so much bigger than that. She's preparing him to choose, to make his own decision about his own life, from a place of empowerment and self-knowledge, not from a place of fear.
So this all leads to the climax of Kajal's personal journey. After Varun eventually does choose the surgery, which is an act of real courage, not fear, the stage is set. And Kajal is about to learn a very hard, very profound lesson about the difference between giving up and letting go.
So, while Kajal is in the OR, fighting with scalpels and monitors, the very definition of action, something else is happening. Varun's family starts a jagran at home. They aren't fighting. They're waiting. They're singing. They're feeling the night with their collective presence. And in that moment, you have these two paths, action and presence, held together in this fragile, necessary balance. Then, in a quiet hospital hallway, Mira shares why she's so still. She admits that she missed her own daughter's last moments because she was too busy doing something. And that confession, it hits Kajal like a physical blow. She suddenly sees her own life, her constant motion, her war on time, as just a frantic 20-year run from the unbearable pain of being present with her own loss. And she's drawn to Varun's home. She actually steps into the jagran, the ritual of her childhood that she abandoned. At first she resists, but then she takes a red ribbon. And then she starts to sing, the same song she sang that night before the accident. The tears finally come, just a flood, releasing decades of dammed-up anger and grief. And for the first time, she doesn't fight it. She just sits, and she lets it be.
This is it. This is her true transformation. She hasn't just come back to a childhood ritual. She's come home to herself. The war is finally over, the armor is gone, and what's left behind is something so much more powerful than rage.
So, let's just trace that evolution one more time. The accident breaks her world. Medical school forges the armor of rage. Varun and Mira, they create the first cracks. The jagran, it just shatters the armor completely. And in the end, she returns, not as a warrior fighting against time, but as a healer, living in the present, her heart finally whole again.
And that really leaves us with this final, crucial question. In a world that is always telling us to do more, to move faster, to find the solution, how do we learn the quiet, courageous, and honestly much harder practice of simply staying? Staying with pain, staying with uncertainty, and most importantly, staying with each other.